All righty, I think it's enough. We'll go ahead and get started for those people who are on a schedule. So thank you guys for joining this week's webinar. Today, the topic is going to be called Helping Data Engineers Operationalize Complex Streaming using the Qubole's data platform. My name is David Stewart. I am an account executive here at Qubole. Joined today with me is Parv Jain, who is one of our lead solutions architects. He's actually going to be going over the pipelines component of our data platform and going through on how you can actually streamline and shorten the time to value using this functionality of feature of Qubole. So before we get started, I'm going to go ahead and give everybody an overview of Qubole for those who are not familiar. Qubole, an Idera company, was started actually back in 2011 from a couple of the co-authors of HIVE Data Engine, and then what they started at Facebook eventually evolved into Qubole, which data platform, which you're going to see today. Some of the success that we've had over the years and the evolution of the platform has been well received within the community, grown to well over 300 different companies out there who have leveraged our platform so far. And over an exabyte of data is what's processed each month through our Qubole platform. So, and we are a multi-platform supporting AWS, GCP, Azure, as well as Oracle. So we are cloud agnostic in that sense, with AWS leading the way. Being able to support not only multiple clouds, but providing the best breed solutions out there for HIVE, Presto, Spark, as well as Airflow for operational orchestration. And go ahead to the next one. What we typically see in customers' deployments is the cloud cost avoidance of spending needed to compute these large data sets. As anyone would know out there, that as you process more data and gaining more insights, that comes with a cost. And what Qubole does is kind of provide means of avoiding that by a couple of different areas, such as our workload auto-aware scaling, being able to leverage more of a spot and these low-cost virtual machines offered by the cloud providers, and then overall just being able to do more with less. And what I like to see here is this is our community feedback. This is not paid advertising. This is actually customers and who are users who like to give our feedback. We lead the way as in our reviews and satisfaction provided. We are backed by Idera, and then so we are part of Idera's data fabric story. If you're familiar with it, the data fabric ensures success by providing a comprehensive tooling ecosystem, such as data architecture, data governance, as well as data analytics to ensure key deliverables. These are improved efficiency and security, reducing your costs, as well as providing data governance, and then overall improved availability and reducing your risk while operating within the cloud. So, and other components of the Data Fabric Studio, if you're not familiar with, is Aqua Data Studios, ER Studios, Warescape for data warehousing, automation, and documentation, and then Qubole, which provides the data lake management component, as well as giving you the ability to operationalize your data lake through creation of data pipelines, ad hoc streaming analytics, and then being able to support machine learning and AI initiatives. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Parv and let him take it over from here. Parv, go ahead.
All right, hi everyone. Thank you, David. My name is Parv Jain, and I'm a solutions architect at Qubole. So as David mentioned, we are a cloud native data lake company, and customers come to us when they have a lot of data and they want to use the compute resources of the cloud to perform analysis on that data. So the data is usually in an object storage, like in an Amazon S3 bucket, and we provide the optimized versions of Hive, Spark, Hadoop, and Presto to perform analysis on that data. Then we also cater to different personas, such as data scientists, data analysts, data engineers, and data admins. And then we have different platform capabilities that I'll cover in the demo. So we have different tools for ETL, and we have notebooks and dashboards and clusters. Now let's talk about the architecture of the Qubole platform and how we can connect to different cloud providers. So I'll start from the left side. This left side is called as the data plane. And as you can see, we support all the major cloud platforms. So we support AWS, Azure, Oracle, and Google. The majority of our customers use AWS, but we have started getting traction in GCP as well. So the data journey starts with data sitting in an object storage, like an Amazon S3 bucket or a data warehouse. And on the top, as you can see, we have the ephemeral scalable compute clusters that reside in the customer's cloud account inside a VPC. So for security reasons, Qubole never transfers any data to Qubole platform. The data always remains in your account. Qubole just makes connection to those to that data. And additionally, Qubole also supports Metastore. So the Metastore resides in the customer's cloud account. And we do provide a multi-tenant Metastore for customers that are starting their journey on the cloud. But we also have established customers like Expedia and Oracle that like to use their own Metastore. And Qubole does support connection to these custom Metastores. Then on the right side, as you can see, it's known as the control plane. So this is where all the functionalities of Qubole lie. So different functionalities like explore, cluster config, analyze, dashboards. I'll cover each of these in the live demo as well. Now let's see how Qubole connects with different cloud providers. So for example, to connect Qubole with AWS, we have two different options to choose from. So the first one is we need to create a role, and we attach two policies to it for S3 and EC2 access. So by attaching these two policies to the role, Qubole basically have the access to spin up and spin down clusters according to your needs. And then for the S3 is to store the logs in the bucket. The other way is using dual IAM role setup. So Qubole documentation is very thorough and easy to follow. You can follow these and you'll be able to set up your account. But let's say if you want to automate this process, Qubole does provide Terraform scripts, and you can use the Terraform script and you'll be able to automate this process of connecting Qubole with AWS. Then on the rightmost part is where you have different ways to connect to the Qubole platform. So you can use different domains depending on your location, such as us.qubole.com, and then you can access the Qubole URL. Then we also provide different APIs and SDKs that you can use to connect to Qubole. And then we have different ODBC and JDBC connectors to connect to leading BI tools such as Power BI, Tableau, and Looker. And then you can also connect to open source tools like Superset and Metabase to run Presto queries for ad hoc analysis on your data. Okay, now let's have a look at what Qubole Pipelines is. So Qubole Pipelines is an enterprise-grade stream processing service that complements your data with advanced capabilities to help you quickly ingest and process streaming data from various sources. So it supports all major clouds as well. So you can connect to AWS, GCP, and Azure. And it is mostly used by data engineers. So data engineers with coding experience in Scala can use the service to create business critical workloads. And also if you are a complete beginner and are not that much comfortable in coding, then we provide a UI that you can use to create assisted pipelines. I'll show you how to create an assisted pipeline in the demo as well. Okay, let's move on to the demo. Please feel free to submit any questions that you have, and I'll be happy to cover those after the webinar, the demo. So this is the landing page that we see when we log into the Qubole platform. So it's so I'm using us.qubole.com right now. So on the left, we can see all the different tools provided by Qubole. And on the top right, we can see different clusters that we have and different accounts. So basically, we can have different accounts for dev, test, and prod over here. And then if I go to my profile from the top right, and if I go to account settings, so this is where I essentially make the connection of AWS and Qubole. So this is where I provided the role ARN, and I've attached two policies to it. And I copied the role ARN here and the default location to store the logs in this S3 bucket. So again, as I mentioned, you can automate this process if you don't want to do this manually using the Terraform scripts. So once we have connection to AWS, I wanted to show you another powerful feature that we offer, which is the role-based access. So let's say we have different personas in your organization, and if you want to give them role-based access, you can use this feature. So let's say there is a dashboard user who can only access the clusters and create notebook dashboards. You can do it from here. And if you want to create a new role, you can create a new role, attach different policies to it. So once we have that, you can assign these roles to different groups. So this group dashboard user has assigned a dashboard user role to this one. And then we can put users in this group. So all the users that are in particular group will only be able to access the roles. So this is a very powerful feature if you want to segregate different teams in your organization. Okay, so let's go to cluster. So now we have a connection to AWS. So let's see how we can connect to different data sources. So if I go to Explore, and if I click on data connections, and new data connection. So this is where I make connections to my data, and I have various options to choose from. So I can choose Azure SQL database, MongoDB, MySQL, Redshift, Snowflake. We support most of them. So let's say if I want to connect to Snowflake, I have to provide the credentials, and then I can click on save, and I'll be able to make the connection. Once I have made the connection, I can see them under my connections. Now let me show you. So since I already have connected my AWS account with Qubole, I can access the S3 bucket directly, all the buckets in my account from here, from the Qubole UI. And then if I click on any of the bucket, I can see the content of the bucket right here. Okay. Now we have connections to our data. Let's see how we can spin up clusters to do analysis on that data. So this is the cluster tab, and this basically shows me all the active clusters, the inactive clusters, and ones that are pending in the running state. So I started this cluster and it will be up and running in a few minutes. So to create a new cluster, I have to click on new. So I have 6 different options to choose from. So I can choose Hive, Spark, Spark Streaming, Presto, Airflow, and MLflow. So let's see how we can create a Spark cluster. So I have to provide a name for this cluster. So let's call it demo Spark. And then I can choose the Spark version from here. So it can be 2.4 or 3.0, the latest version. And then here I specify the master node and the worker node. So depending on my workload, I can choose the number of cores I need and the amount of memory I need for the master and the worker node. And then this is basically where the auto scaling works. So I specify the minimum number of worker nodes and the maximum. So let's say I want 2 minimum and maximum of, let's say, 15. So Qubole will basically upscale and downscale between this range depending on the workload. And then I can specify the region here where I want to deploy this cluster and specify the availability zone. And if I have any bootstrap script, I can include it from the S3 location, and I can provide the path here. And then the idle cluster timeout is basically, so let's say I don't have any workload pending on this cluster. So the cluster will basically terminate after 1 hour of idle timeout. And then if I go to composition, so here I can choose a different type of nodes. So I have 2 options to choose from: on-demands or spot nodes. So spot nodes come at a huge discount as compared to on-demand nodes. And I can just run my workload on spot nodes. But the problem with that is, so AWS can take spot nodes away on a short notice. So, but with Qubole, what we do is, so let's say if you are using spot nodes and if you have workload pending on spot nodes and AWS takes them away, what we do is, instead of your job failure, Qubole will pull back to on-demand nodes, and all of your workload from spot nodes will be shifted to on-demand nodes without any failure, any workload. And it's all automatic, so you don't have to worry about your jobs failing. And then if you go to advanced configuration, you can select a VPC here if you want to deploy a cluster inside a VPC. And if you want to change the default configurations for Hadoop or Spark from here. And then we also provide different monitoring tools. So if you want to enable Ganglia, you can do it from here. And then you can also enable Datadog as well by providing the token. So once we have everything in, we can click on create, and it will create the cluster for you. Okay. So we have I already created this cluster called Spark Streaming. I'll go ahead and start this one as well. Now let me show you the Pipelines tab. So Pipelines tab is a very powerful feature that we can use to create a streaming pipeline. So we have two different options to choose from. So as I mentioned earlier, that if you don't want to write a single piece of code, you can use the assisted pipeline feature. And if you have a jar file or a custom code, if you want to code it yourself, you can do it using this one. So what I'm going to show you is how I already created this pipeline called pipeline demo, and I'll show you how I created it step by step. Okay, so once I log in, I have to provide the source for my data set. So I have three different options to choose from. So here I selected Kafka, or I can select Kinesis or S3. So, and then I have to provide basically the endpoint of my Kafka application. That's what the Bootstrap server is. So here I mentioned the endpoint. And then what I'm doing is I'm basically handling data that I'm handling data from Twitter. So I have multiple tweets that are coming in from the Kafka application. So that's my topic, basically tweets. And then I have various options to choose from for the input format. So my data is in JSON. And here I have provided the schema for my data. Once I have provided that, then I have the option to choose if I want the latest or the earliest. So I have selected latest. And then for the Kafka default configurations, if I want to override them, I can do it from here. So let's say I want number of retries to be 3 instead of 5, I can do it from here. And then I can select the sync. So once I have my source set up, now I have the option to select the sync. So essentially, this is where all my process data will go to. So I have options to choose from, again, Kafka. I can choose S3, HIVE, or Snowflake. So I'm selecting S3 here. And I have to provide basically the path of my S3 bucket in this. And then if I want to partition it by column, I can provide the name of the columns here and it will partition the data by columns for me. And then we can select the output format from here. So I have three different options, JSON, CSV, Parquet. I'm going to use JSON. And then if I want to provide any S3 configurations, if I want to override anything, I can do it from here. Okay, let's go to properties. So I have the source, I have the sync. Now let's see what properties do we have to assign. So as I showed earlier, that I created this cluster called Spark Streaming. So I have to select one cluster, and then I have the option to basically retry my pipeline in failure. So I selected yes. And then if I want to override any Spark configurations, I can do that from here. And then when it comes to streaming, I have three different options to choose from. So the first one is checkpoint location. So this is essentially if there is a failure, I can select a checkpoint where I can recover it from. And then I can set regular interval, and I have two different options to choose, three different options. So append, complete, or update. So if I want to append the new data that's coming in, or if I want to update the existing data. And this is where, the visualization of basically my pipeline looks like. So I have the source and I have the sync. And this is where I set different filters on it. So if I, let me show you how to add a filter though. So if I click on plus, so I have four different options. So let's say if I want to put a filter, and I have a retweet count. So this is basically, so if I have a tweet and it has a retweet count of, let's say, more than 10 or 20, and if I click on apply, so it's going to add a new filter for me, and it will basically give me tweets that has more than 20 retweets. And I have two different views. So if I click on code, I can have a look at it, have a look at the code as well, and I can edit it from here. Or if I just want a visualizations, I can look it from here. And then if I want to do a test run before actually deploying my pipeline, I can do that from here. If I click on test run, it will do a test run for the pipeline. And then I can use the logs feature to basically see or debug any issues or anything, if there is any errors or not. And then if I click on next, so I can receive notifications on Slack, email, webhook, or PagerDuty if there is any pipeline failure or if it's successfully deployed. And I already created this channel where I'll basically get an email if the pipeline succeeds or fails. And then we can click on review. So this is basically the summary of what we did. So the source and the sink and the properties that we assigned, and then we can just click on deploy now. So it's that easy to basically create a data pipeline, and I didn't have to write a single piece of code to deploy my pipeline. I can do all of this using the notebooks feature as well, which I'll cover after. Let me see the workbench. So let me show you the workbench first. Basically, you can do everything that I showed you in the pipelines in the notebooks as well. But the reason I want to show you this one workbench is to show you how you can basically have a look at your data as well. So these are the different schemas. And if I want to run any query against my data for like ad hoc analysis, I can do it over here. So Qubole comes with some example queries that you can see, basically see to see how Qubole platform works. So if I basically select this query and I select a cluster, and if I click on run, this will execute this query against my data. So you can also connect to different BI tools using the connectors that I mentioned, and you can use Workbench to have a look at the queries that are being executed from the history tab. Okay. Now let me go to the notebooks tab. So we have two different options in notebooks. So we offer Zeppelin notebooks and Jupyter notebooks. So the first one, let me show you the Zeppelin notebooks. So I already created this one called Bay Area Bike Share Analysis notebook, which is written in Scala. And on the top right, you can see we have a cluster attached to it, and we can change the cluster if you want to. And if you want to start this cluster, we can just click on start now. It will start the cluster. Okay. So the notebook can be used to basically have your code and visualization side by side. So as you can see, I have written this code in Angular, and I have the visualizations for this particular code right next to it. And then in the same notebook, I'm using SQL here to plot this pie chart. So basically, in one notebook, you can use multiple languages, whichever you're comfortable with. So here I'm plotting a bar chart as well using SQL. So it's pretty easy to use multiple languages. And then let's say if you want to create a dashboard. So if I go here and click plus, and if I just click on create, so this will create a new dashboard for me. So this dashboard will only have the bar charts and the pie charts, and will not have a single piece of code. So I can basically share this with anyone. I can email it to them, or I can download it as a PDF. I have different options to choose from. Now let me show you how we can create a new notebook. So to create a new one, let's go to dashboards, home, and then click on new. So to click on to create a new notebook, let's call it demo. So I have two different options. So first one is Presto, and second one is Spark. So let's say I want to create a Spark notebook. I have 4 different languages that I can choose from: PySpark, SQL, Scala, or Spark R. So let's take PySpark and click on create. So it's pretty simple to basically create a new notebook. And another feature that I have seen data engineers use is the scheduler that Qubole provides. So this is out of the box, and it's pretty inbuilt. So you can basically schedule your jobs in regular intervals. So let's say I want to schedule a job called Spark notebook. So I can select what kind of command is it. So it's a Spark command. And let's say if I want to schedule a notebook, I can do it from here. And then the notebook that we just looked at, it's called Bay Area Bike Share. So if I click on that one, so I have this scheduler where I can choose to schedule it hourly, daily, weekly, or monthly, or other options too. I can even use cron expressions if I want. So let's do daily. And then we can choose the start time, the end time, and then the time zone. And then we can send ourselves notifications. So if there's any failure or if there is any some success as well. I've already created this channel called PARV, and I can click on save. So this will create a new schedule for me, and it will run this job daily for me. So we can use the scheduler if it's a basic job, but Qubole also comes inbuilt with Airflow. So you can run an Airflow cluster to orchestrate your workflows as well. So if I want to create a Airflow cluster, I can just go to Airflow and click on create. and basically provide it's basically the same as we created the Spark cluster, and you can provide the details, and then you'll be able to automate your workflows and different pipelines. So you can also automate your pipelines using Airflow. So it's a pretty powerful feature as well. Now let's go back to the slides. That's pretty much it that I wanted to cover in the demo. Let's see if you have any questions. Back to you, David.
Absolutely. Thank you, Par, for that. So yeah, guys, we're going to go ahead and open it up to some questions. If you want to go ahead and submit them to chat window right now, we'll go ahead and give a minute to type those in. And so we got hello, Wissam. All right, hold on. We got another question coming in here. Qubole supports the multiple engines. Can you tell me when to use Presto or Spark for ETL pipelines? Sure, I'll go ahead and give that question over to Parv. Parv.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, thanks for the question. So, so basically, Presto is for ad hoc analysis. As I mentioned, you can use it for BI reporting use cases that you might have. So you can go to the workbench and then use Presto for any ad hoc analysis. But and then you can also use ODBC and JDBC connectors, as I mentioned earlier, to basically connect to the BI tools. But for ETL pipelines, we provide various engines such as Spark, HIVE, that you can, but you can also leverage the Qubole notebooks also to write code in multiple languages for ETL jobs. So basically, Presto you can use for ad hoc analysis, and then Spark you can use for ETL pipelines.
All right, sounds good. All right, hey, Wissam, I guess your question was, is this in beta or production? Actually, the pipelines feature is available for Qubole customers today. It is marked as beta in their current release, though in our next release, R60 coming up, actually in a couple weeks here, we're scheduled for, it's going to be listed as production ready. So that's a question. All right, another question, how is Qubole licensed? I guess that's a sales question. I'll go ahead and take that one. So Qubole is a consumption-based license model. We license it through what we call a QCU, Qubole Compute Unit, and those get consumed as you use compute hours. Qubole actually rents the resources on your behalf in your own environment, so all the data in your work stays within your own VPC. Qubole does not take any of the data out of your environment, so anything done, and then we license it by your compute hours that you request on your behalf, right? So, and then additional details can be answered on an individual questions on your specific scenarios, how many QCUs you would need based on your workloads and the type of instances that you guys run. So, another question came in on that. Mentioned auto scaling. How does auto scaling work with pipelines? Okay, sure. I go ahead and pass this one over to Parv.
Yeah, sure. So for auto scaling, so as I showed you in the demo, when you create a new cluster, so you can provide the minimum and the maximum number of worker nodes. And what Qubole does is, depending on the number of jobs running, Qubole will basically upscale and downscale for you, and it will take care of the active nodes to minimize your cloud cost. You can also run your workloads on a spot node instead of on-demand nodes to decrease your cloud cost, as I showed you that you have the option to choose from on-demand and spot nodes. So that's how we auto scale.
All right, thank you. Cool. And well, I guess any other questions come in here? One is, well, we actually, with some, again, yep, that leads to our last question. We do offer Qubole as a free to use trial period. We provide the full functionality of the platform. Again, it's pretty simple. What we can do is get started with our, go to the next slide, actually has a link to our getting started. You can try at qubole.com/free trial, and that will go ahead and get you an account created within Qubole. And then from there, you would actually connect it to your data in your environment, AWS, GCP, or Azure, right? And so, and then additional questions, maybe we can follow up with as well. You can send them to me directly at david.stewart@qubole.com. And then we can go from there. So one other question, can you send us these links? Yep, absolutely. We're going to follow up this with a thank you for attending email with the link to where you can access the information. I also want to remind everybody, if you haven't already, we do have some other upcoming webinar series. As mentioned earlier, we do have a new release coming out. This is going to be supporting the Spark 3.0, and it's going to cover what all that includes, new functionality features, performance improvements beyond what Qubole already provides. And then on January 27th, we have another one covering our support for the Google Cloud Platform. And then on February 3rd, we actually have one that's going to specifically focus on Qubole support for the Gravitron processor provided by AWS in your cloud environment, again, with the goal of further reducing your cloud requirements and spend. So with that ado, guys, I want to say, hey, thanks for everybody for joining, and look forward to seeing you guys on a future webinar.
Thank you.
Thank you.